Gary, I'm going to the big dog party. Like
Nice to meet you.
Peter Bouchard, it's a pleasure. Great meeting.
Kill me sitting rich. You said they treat me.
Did you have the Brennan dinner?
Yeah. You know why?
Not up to date on my decor.
No, I wasn't there, but
It wasn't
knew you.
caffeine.
Was it last night?
Outcast around here.
Tuesday night, yeah, great.
Thank you.
Kim's a good friend.
One person likes me.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Wow, we got a full house today.
Oh,
Way to
you
go.
like me too.
Before I call this meeting to order, I'll note for the record that I will serve as the acting chair for today's meeting. I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the New York State Urban Development Corporation, DBA Empire State Development, for Thursday, November 19th, 2015. As noted on the agenda posted to the internet, we welcome public comment on the items on the following agenda. To ensure maximum opportunity for participation, speakers representing themselves may speak for up to 2 minutes each, and those representing groups may speak for up to 4 minutes with one speaker per group. Speakers' comments may address only the items considered at today's meeting. At this time, I'll ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. If so, I'll ask you to please make an appropriate disclosure on the record now, and we'll then remind you to recuse yourself from any discussion or vote with regard to such item or items. Lastly, please note that in an attempt to streamline the process to allow more time to focus on the region's strategic plan and present the larger picture of ESD's work throughout the state, the agenda has been reformatted a bit to list the projects by region as opposed to by category. You might recall we used to jump between regions. Now within a region, we'll jump between categories. And I should say to any of the regions on the phone, you know, stay with us through your presentation, but then, you know, you can get off and go to your regular business once we're done with the region, as much as I know you're all keenly interested in staying through the entire board meeting. In addition, the projects will be voted on. What I suggest we do anyway is vote on the projects after each region. So we'll probably have maybe half fewer motions, and you know, each region that presents will have 1, 2, or maybe at most 3 different items. Let's just take those by region, and we can go from there. We'll probably save ourselves 10 or 15 different motions and approvals, and everyone will have the opportunity to ask questions on every project, and we can, you know, maybe get through the meeting in that fashion.
This is part of the state's efficiency plan.
Yes, lean processing. Yes, this is the governor. This is the governor's lean approach.
I like that.
Okay. And anyway, so we'll give it a shot. As always, the directors have received the written materials in advance of this meeting, and they're free to ask questions at any time during the presentations. The first item on today's agenda is the approval of the minutes of the October 2015 directors. Are there any questions, comments, additions, or deletions with regard to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I'm just going to make a few comments before we get started. And actually, what I'm going to do first, as part of the President's report at the beginning of our meetings, is ask Rich Newman, who's our Executive Vice President of Marketing, to discuss a bit with all the directors the recently completed tourism summit. This is all very fresh in our minds since this happened yesterday. So, as you all know, tourism is a huge part of the New York State economy. Rich reminds me it's now, for the first time, $100 billion economic impact in New York State. It's New York State's 4th largest industry, and it has a role in New York State beyond just its measurable economic impact. It also, I think, has a significant impact on foreign direct investment in time that comes into the state, as well as international students that come to the state. I don't think it's a coincidence that New York State leads in tourism, foreign direct investment, international students. I think those are all interconnected. I think that's, I think tourism has a even wider, greater impact on our economy than we recognize in the numbers we show, because it's so it's significant. Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the ESD board. Yesterday was a terrific day for the 3rd annual Governor's Summit on Tourism. It was hosted in Albany. There were about 230 attendees to the summit. They included members of the Senate and the Assembly, industry luminaries, members of the Tourism Advisory Council that's headed up by Christine Nicholas, as well as a number of our regional tourism promotion partners around the state. The governor who hosts the summit was unfortunately unable to attend, so we were hosted by both Chairman Zemsky as well as the Lieutenant Governor, who did an amazing job at helping people through the 4.5-hour day that we had. The summit provided an opportunity to talk about the accomplishments. Howard's covered a number of those. What was particularly, I think, enlightening and gratifying for the members of the audience was when the governor appeared in the video and referenced the fact that the state has invested under his administration $130 million in tourism to help promote the tourism and leisure and hospitality economy. And we have, in that same time frame, increased our total economic impact by over $8 billion. He suggested if there were any other investments that provided that kind of return, he'd be very happy to do them. But as far as we know, this is amongst the best of those investments. He mentioned the fact that it provides over 860,000 jobs in the course of the year, and that we have $62.5 billion in economic direct impact and 227 million visitors to New York State in total. The positive response we've gotten in terms of revenue growth associated with tourism had allowed the governor to announce the fact that he is going to increase the support of tourism in the next fiscal year and request that funding reach $50 million as opposed to the $45 million that was allocated this year. That $50 million is going to cover a number of important initiatives that begin to address not only the attraction of people, but also some of the fundamentals around the business. So one of the initiatives will include a transportation linkage initiative where we will better understand how to drive particularly millennials in metropolitan areas like New York up to and connect them with transportation opportunities that allow them to go through specific markets, whether they're going to Dutchess County or the Finger Lakes. The second is a work group around hospitality to better understand with both state and private industry people how we can enhance the hospitality options around the state and what are the critical recommendations that this group will bring forward for further consideration. Talked about expanding our global tourism markets. We're going to expand our relationship with Australia as well as with China. We also referenced the fact that we have a exciting new relationship with Puerto Rico and a collaborative marketing effort to promote tourism in both of those regions. Governor also talked about, I'm sorry, actually it was Commissioner Zemsky who talked about the opportunity to enhance the events that are happening around the state. There is going to be funding to help drive participation by local municipalities to actually compete for large-scale athletic entertainment events. So we will be refunding entry fees and various other costs for those who are able to bring new business into the state. There are a number of promotional items he mentioned as well. We have new advertising that will support the winter tourism area and some promotional opportunities around outdoor activities during the winter that will enhance the likelihood that we'll attract more visitors. The response was extremely positive from the industry, and there's an enormous amount of collaboration that is coming forth as a result of the governor's effort and the state's efforts to promote this important industry. So
that was great. And you know, the great thing about these summits are we get so much industry input that we invite, I don't know how many folks are around the table, maybe 30 folks around the table.
right.
And they all, you know, have important stakeholders in the tourist industry. Based on their input, in terms of how to best advance the industry, we develop these policy guidelines. So not coincidentally, our policies are aligned with the great input we get from all of these very experienced stakeholders in the tourism industry. So we've done that in tourism. Rich and his whole team did a great job in preparing for this, and ESD puts a high priority on tourism.
You can use your phone, just don't touch that second line.
Okay, I'm not touching. I'm going to touch
Okay.
anything. Okay, so what am I telling people? 'Cause
They
I got,
they could dial in now.
okay.
Are we good? All right.
We are.
Next-
not.
Next month, we're going to have a whole segment on speakerphones.
Are you having trouble there?
Well, we hear you now.
Oh, good. There you go. So no reason to have a training on speakerphone.
There's just so much of that guitar thing you can handle, and you start to scream, you know?
You know who is this?
on mute. She is now.
Gotta know.
Okay. So anyway, the concept around these summits is really to gather stakeholders, get input, and then derive policy that are informed by the input, which is, I think, how we've done it successfully now for many years, which has been fabulous. Thank you, Rich. Much appreciated. And similarly, recently we held a summit. Sam Filler, who is also familiar to people around this table, heads all of our, among other things, craft beverage initiatives, we hosted a summit. The governor hosted a summit last month. And why don't you give us an update, Sam, on how that went and some of the initiatives connected to craft beverage?
Sure. Good afternoon, Chairman and Directors. Governor Cuomo hosted his third Beer, Wine, Spirits, and Cider Summit on October 7th. And I think it's a great celebration of the industry because it's been growing so rapidly. And again, it's very similar to the Tourism Summit where it's an opportunity for us to get together, highlight the industry, speak with the leaders of that industry, and to get together and come up with new policy areas that we can use to strengthen and further enhance the industry. So very similar to the Tourism Summit, it was hosted in Albany in the Egg, attended by members of the Assembly and the Senate, senior staff members from the Governor's Office, staff from ESD, and also Department of Agriculture, the State Liquor Authority, Tax and Finance. It's kind of a very holistic summit. And when the governor came into office, one of the key things he did was find ways that we could cut red tape and modernize some of the regulations. So a lot of the impediments to the growth of the industry have to do with our alcohol beverage laws, which are overseen by the State Liquor Authority. So we've done a lot to streamline those and make it easier for folks to get into business and to obtain licenses. The State Liquor Authority has improved their processing time from 6 months to somewhere between 30 and 45 days to get a new license, which is really a tremendous improvement, especially if you're trying to start a business. So the big headline from this is we announced more than a $16 million investment for the industry, that being a renewal of the craft beverage grant program and advertising funds the governor committed at the April 2014 summit. So that will be another $1 million in advertising, and then $3 million for craft beverage grants, and then $1 million for tourism promotion. There's a great, we call it the Food Venture Center in Geneva. It's run by Cornell. That also received a $3.5 million grant to help modernize that facility, and it's really one of a kind in the United States, or one of very few of where food processing companies can take their products and have them scaled up and tested, and this is a service that Cornell provides. Also through us, through ESD, We're going to be dedicating $5 million from the Global New York Fund to assist wine and beer manufacturers with preparing to export to other countries. And one recent really great example was Empire Brewing participated in our Chinese trade mission. They met a Chinese tea company, and they're now producing a green tea beer, which is called Two Dragons, and it's going to be exported very soon through assistance through our Global New York office. And then, as I mentioned, the State Liquor Authority, it's really kind of a summit about the ways that they can assist the industry. So immediately, a week after the summit concluded, their board approved 15 regulatory changes that, again, further made it easier for folks to do business. A big thing is if you're a farm licensee, which means you use New York State ingredients, you can open branch offices across the state. These are like additional retail locations you can have. So now, before only one person or one company could have a branch office, but now a group of 5 or 3 can collaborate together and open, say, a shop in New York City or a shop in Rochester, which really helps them maximize their marketing opportunities. I won't go too much more into like the craft beverage grant program because that's an item for later in this board meeting, but that's been a very successful program, and we're excited that we'll be able to continue that. So, thank you.
Great, thanks, Sam. This is an industry that I think is, one of the few industries in New York State or any state that's growing triple-digit rate. So the craft beverage industry in New York State, some of these different segments, whether it's cideries or micro distilleries or even craft breweries, are sometimes growing as much as 300% annually. So it's quite a robust industry in the state, and it's added to employment quite a bit, and it's been great. So some other points. Thank you, Sam. Any questions for Sam? I know Rich had to go to another meeting. Any questions for Sam or anything else? Okay. So I want to let you know that ESD has successfully been redesignated as New York State's Manufacturing Extension Partnership Center. ESD receives funding from the federal government as a result of this to the tune of almost $6 million a year in federal funding annually for the next 5 years. The federal funding is in addition to state funding of about $3.8 million that then gets allocated out through a competitive process to each of the 10 regions for an organization, generally I believe a not-for-profit organization that really specializes in assisting manufacturers with things like process design, lean manufacturing practices, and things of that nature. So it was a really significant win, if you will, for ESD to be designated, and it will continue that successful program that we have called the MVP, Manufacturing Extension Partnerships. And then very briefly, I'll say the governor took a keen interest, thankfully, and ESD was proud to play get an assist on his quick response to the potential loss of jobs around the Kraft Heinz circumstance. You may know that Kraft was acquired recently by Heinz. They announced many plant closings around the country. There were potentially several that would have happened in New York State, but for the governor's keen interest in saving these jobs, in generally speaking, in small towns throughout upstate New York. So I think and he was particularly successful in doing that. Also notable was a recent announcement in Central New York by a very high-tech LED lighting firm from California that they're relocating a substantial portion of their operation to Central New York, a company called Sora, and plan on investing over $1 billion over the next 10 years. Those are, kind of next generation types of jobs and industries that the governor has been extremely focused on. So we've seen some announcements of those types of industries and investments across the state recently. I know Vinny will probably talk a bit about one in the Finger Lakes, or 2 in the Finger Lakes. We've seen it in Utica through the announcements there a couple months ago. Of course, you see it in Albany often. You see it in Western New York through clean energy and solar panels. So these types of industries have been a real target of the governors, those next generation technologies and jobs that are in high demand and particularly desirable throughout upstate. There was an announcement as well in the last month about the women's building, which was the former Bayview Correctional Facility here in Manhattan. And that is one of the areas Tom Conoscenti did a great job, and the whole team at ESD. One of the responsibilities or the portfolio responsibilities that ESD has is repurposing these state properties. So sometimes they're psychiatric centers, or sometimes they're correctional facilities, or sometimes other. But this was a huge win. The Buffett family came in as the lead investors, the Gorin Group as the developers, and you've got this, basically vacant, underutilized historic facility that's being repurposed as the women's building in New York. So that was to Kevin Hansen and to Joe Chan and to Tom and the whole group. That was a huge win, and to everyone who was involved in that, Liz and her team. None of these things happen without a lot of work, and that was one of a good example of one of the key ways that ESD brings value to the state economy. So I was pleased with that. Last month I introduced you to Kevin Eunice as our Chief Operating Officer, and this month I'm introducing you to Lindsay Boylan as my Chief of Staff. Lindsay, welcome. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to say a few words about your background, and we just want to welcome you.
I started off in urban planning in New York City, and I quickly moved into the business improvement district world. And after business school, I went into municipal finance, and so I think all that experience has been a great lead up to joining ESD, where I think a lot of really important work is happening. So I'm very, very happy to be here and in this capacity.
Great. Thank you, and welcome. The feature presentation of our board meeting, as far as I'm concerned today, although we have many important projects, I wanted to, as part of this change in format, introduce the directors and our whole organization really to our regional director. So it's my intention at every board meeting to invite a regional director from throughout the state to introduce themselves, so you get to know them and they get to know you, and more importantly, to acknowledge the amazing work that they do. New York State does not have a one-size-fits-all approach to economic development. These regions have developed very robust strategic plans, and in some cases, like this year, in addition to their strategic plan, they had to dig deeper, go further, and develop these additional layer of planning around this governor's upstate revitalization initiative. So I know it's been an extremely, probably unprecedented busy year for you, Vinny, and the Finger Lakes Regional Council. So without spending too much time introducing Vinny, that's the purpose of this, to understand our Finger Lakes strategy and ask Vinny any questions and get a sense of how New York does economic development regionally. So, Vinny, take it away.
Thank you, Howard. You might want to slide over so you don't get blinded by the presentation. It's that good. Although it's not coming up yet, so I'll have to... There we go. Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Howard, for the introduction and the invitation to be here. I'm Vinny Esposito. I'm the Regional Director in the Finger Lakes region. What I have here today is about a 10-minute presentation at Howard's request to just give you a sense of what the region is, and obviously take any questions you might have. But my entire goal today is to make sure that after this presentation you know a little bit more about the region than it just being the home of the garbage plate. And if you don't know what that is, consider yourself lucky, and if you want to learn, I'd be happy to take you around and introduce you to our region's own delicacy. But the Finger Lakes region is otherwise known as the Greater Rochester region. Rochester's the state's third largest city, but it is also an extraordinarily large region that, and the intention of this opening slide is to really show you the dichotomy of what we have, and that is a very, very large rural landscape that is unique in that it's named after these glacier lakes that are shaped like fingers. Interestingly enough, the vagaries of the ESD naming system in the state's region, only about 2/3 of the Finger Lakes are actually in the Finger Lakes region. We share them with the Southern Tier region and the Central New York region. It's beautiful country, and hopefully that just gives you a sense of it. So just to see where we're talking about, you can see we're right up on Lake Ontario. Rochester is in between Buffalo and Syracuse, Central New York and Western New York regions. And we have 9 counties in our region, which is the most number of counties of any region in New York State's economic development system. It's the size of Connecticut, or close to, in terms of geographic size. And they're very diverse counties centered around Rochester. And in particular, one of them, Livingston, the long one in the center middle there, the largest employer there is the Kraft plant in Avon that Howard and the governor worked so strongly that he just mentioned to save. And so we are constantly faced with challenges that face all upstate communities and are working to address them. Wanted to show you just a couple stats to give you a sense of what the region's economic picture looks like. By and large, Rochester is a very steady community economically. We've had modest job and population growth and declining unemployment. A little bit ahead most of the other upstate regions, in fact. We have unemployment rate just about 5%. It's been declining, as you can see, for the last few years, a little bit ahead of the national and state averages. And we've created 25,000 new jobs just since 2010. So since this governor came into office, since the regional council enterprise went into effect, and by no means is that the sole reason for it, but the work has contributed towards a steady set of employment growth that is among the leaders in upstate, and was the leader in upstate until the last year when Hudson and Western New York and Central, or excuse me, the Capital Region all saw significant job growth to start to catch up. But it's a positive picture, one that we're continuing to push on, and is working against the traditional downgrade and downsizing of the manufacturing sector in upstate New York. But the economy here is diversified enough that it's been able to withstand that, and starting to see some growth that I think is noteworthy and worth mentioning. The other thing I wanted to mention in terms of the general overall economy of the Finger Lakes is its historical strength in what we call innovation, particularly around some of the indicators you see here, which this slide is far more complicated than it needs to be. But the first line and the last line in particular will show you that a couple measures in which we identify the education component, and particularly the science, tech, and math education components of our region, we do very well and have for a long time. We have more patents per capita than almost any region in the country, and we have more R&D expenditures per capita than most regions in the country, and it's much more surprising than you might believe if you don't know much about Rochester, and I'll get into that a little bit. And in the STEM degrees, we're very similar to other parts of upstate, a little bit better in that region, and that's something that continues to drive the economy and keep it from withstanding the traditional cycle downgrades we've seen at large manufacturers into other high-tech innovation economy businesses. Just want to sort of point out some of the companies you might recognize. So this is the list of the largest employers in the Finger Lakes region. If you look in the bottom right, I highlighted, in case you could possibly miss it, what this list would have looked like 35 years ago. That's 62,000 jobs just in Rochester at Eastman Kodak. They're now under 2,000. This is actually a list that is not up to date with 2015 numbers. It's a striking story, and it's been similarly patterned by Xerox and Bausch & Lomb, which were 30 years ago the big three manufacturers, the base of Rochester's economy. That economy has completely changed. It's still changing in that Eastman Kodak continues to restructure, as does Xerox and Bausch & Lomb, although all of them are finding their footing, I think, in the new economies that they're trying to move forward on. But you can see the employment base is completely different. The University of Rochester is the largest employer by far. It is, in fact, the 8th largest private employer in all of New York State, the 2nd largest medical system north of New York City, including New York City. It is home to the world-renowned Eastman School of Music, so it's a large university structure that, as you can see, dwarfs any other employer. Now the 2nd largest employer is also the competing health system, which is a merger of 2 other health systems. So you can just get a sense for the way the education sector and the health sectors now dominate the regional economies. Wegmans Food Markets, hopefully something, a name you're familiar with or will become more familiar with in this, expanding into New York City for the first time next year. Private citizen. Not also insignificant is the fact Council for all of its 4 years in existence, and I think contributed greatly towards its success. But you do see a couple other nationally noteworthy companies on here: Xerox, Paychex, Rochester Institute of Technology, which is one of the largest undergraduate schools in terms of enrollment. Directly in the purview of ESD, although is becoming more so as we all try to focus harder on hard-to-place workers. But the story of poverty in upstate cities is one that is growing in attention, and I think for good reason. In Rochester, definitely for good reason, because we have some very striking statistics in a bad way, where we have pretty affluent and pretty successful regions and portions of our region in general. We have very large, very concentrated pockets of poverty, and particularly among children, that are something that we cannot ignore, not that we've been ignoring, but continue to sweep over in the way that has with our economic development efforts. And this is really being led by the governor, who in last year's State of the State address identified Rochester as a place where he formed an anti-poverty task force specifically to address these problems. And I mention it now because it will feature prominently later in the presentation when we talk about the efforts of our regional council this year. This is now no longer a secondary issue in the world of economic development and strategic planning, at least. One of the high points, flaying off Sam's wonderful presentation, is that the Finger Lakes is really becoming, I will say, a high-quality, world-renowned destination and feature region in the industry of wine production, in the craft beverage industry in total. And that was really sort of identified clearly last year when Wine Enthusiast, probably the premier wine magazine in the world, identified New York, in fact, its collections of regions, as the wine region of the year in the world in terms of what it's doing with its industry. And the Finger Lakes is the oldest, most renowned, and largest by far wine region in New York State. It is very well known for its vinifera white wines, most likely Riesling, but is growing in quality and quantity and availability of other wine vintages as well. And it's something that we're very proud of, and that the governor is very proud of, and his Taste New York initiative and Sam's work at the One Stop within ESD have been integral to helping that industry really explode in growth, and not just wine, but in craft beer, in cider, and in spirits as well. It's an incredible setting, as you can sort of get a sense from that picture with the glacier lakes and the microclimates they create to grow grapes that are really unmatched in other parts of the United States. That's what really makes it unique. And something that allows certain varieties to do so well and become so high quality. So it's something I wanted to point out just so you get a flavor of that. Unfortunately, I did not bring any samples. I apologize. I should have thought of that in advance, but I didn't know if that broke the rules. I do want to point out the Startup New York program. This agency and this state and this administration have been working very hard to, in general, commercialize technologies into jobs from the incredible asset that's our higher education system. You know that. You've seen that. We're working very hard in the Finger Lakes region to make that happen. And it's unique in that the Finger Lakes region does not have a major SUNY school. There are a couple SUNY schools. Two most noteworthy are Brockport and Geneseo, but they are from the era of the traditional teaching colleges that became SUNY schools, which are wonderful liberal arts institutions, but they're not the main economic drivers that you'd see in Albany or Binghamton or Buffalo or Stony Brook. And so that poses a little bit of a challenge with the startup program, but it does work with our other institutions, and all 8 of these that you see have approved Startup New York plans. And in fact, this slide I learned this morning from Leslie Watley is out of date. We now have 14 companies approved that have made commitments in the range that you see here, including one of the greatest success stories for Startup New York upstate, and that's a company called Datto, which was the first company approved by a private college with RIT. It was a company that was started by an RIT alumni in his father's garage in Connecticut in the area of backup recovery and data management. He's opened his first office outside of Connecticut in downtown Rochester, really hubbing and spurring this innovation zone that we're trying to build in the midtown area of Rochester, and is a great success story. They've already almost created all of the jobs that they said they would create in the 5 years of their Startup New York commitment, and are looking to expand already. And that's just after 1 year of implementation. They're doing great, and it's, I think, a great testament to the program, and one of the success stories that you might not hear about as often. The thing I really want to talk about today, and what's unique about the regional offices that Howard has talked a lot about and that I want you to understand is this not new, it's not new anymore, it's 4.5 years old, but the effort the governor has put in place to create regional councils, to bring stakeholders from throughout a region to be directly involved in the strategic planning process for their region's economy. And what you see here is a snapshot of a very engaged regional council and some of the other people who are participating in our work groups and come to our meetings, including Hilda Rosario Escher right there in the front center in the red jacket, one of your fellow directors who couldn't be with us today, although I think she's on the phone. But we have a terrific group of people who are incredibly committed to this effort. It's proven very consistent and very successful, and as Howard alluded, and I'm going to get to next, is really going to the next level with the introduction of the Upstate Revitalization Initiative into the regional council process. But this is a nice shot of everyone just a couple of months ago as we voted on our final approval for our Upstate Revitalization Initiative in the new plan. Quick snapshot of what the regional council has done in its first 4 years. They created a strategic plan, as did all 10 regions in 2011, called Accelerating Our Transformation, which was the first time, despite collaboration that exists in these regions, we had a region-wide strategic plan that was bought into by the entire region, by all 9 counties, and by various stakeholders throughout business, labor, higher education, nonprofit sector, and a variety of other interests that wouldn't normally come together. We've been very successful in the first 4 years of the consolidated funding application process. You can see here some of the numbers in terms of number of projects that have been awarded funding, how much they've been awarded, and the level to which that has leveraged private investment and direct job creation, just so far. And then this year you have the introduction of the 5th round, which has the whole new component of the Upstate Revitalization Initiative. And I do want to make mention that this is a process that is much more than the 24 or 3 dozen or so members of the regional councils. Almost every region, but especially ours, has an elaborate work group structure where you have, in our case, over 450 volunteer stakeholders engaged on an active, ongoing annual basis for this planning process that continues to live and breathe. And that's what makes this whole process so exciting and fruitful. What you have here is a snapshot of the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Council's Upstate Revitalization Initiative Plan. We refer to this picture as our temple or our house. It really shows our whole 200-page plan in one graphic that identifies everything from the goals at the very top of the house, which we added reduction of poverty to the state's enforced goals. The pillars or the industry sectors that we believe we have strength and opportunity to grow, most notably being the optics, photonics, and imaging sector. Agriculture and food production. Our region is responsible for 1/4 of all of New York State's ag output in terms of economic quantity, which is really noteworthy and impressive and has an enormous opportunity going forward. Next generation manufacturing and technology, things like energy storage, biomaterials, advanced manufacturing, a couple of the high growth potential opportunities that we see that could really transform our economy away from the traditional manufacturing to more knowledge-based and have great opportunities for jobs going forward. And then you see some of the enabling factors, we call them, right below them, that cross-cut all industries, but especially the ones we've identified in our strategic plan. And most notably being on the left, what we call pathways to prosperity. This is really the area in which our council has decided to directly take on hard-to-place workers and developing them and getting them the skills they need to be part of the economy, but in particular those who are in the working poor and in poverty, to get skills to be able to meet the 21st century type jobs that we're trying to create with this plan. And that is an integral portion of this plan to be successful. There are already an untold number, and some people would estimate as many 20,000 unfilled jobs in the manufacturing sectors in the Finger Lakes region for middle skills positions where you have people that aren't working but don't have the skills to fill them. We need to close that gap. We're doing a lot of different things to do it bit by bit. We hope to do it even stronger and more focused with the URI plan. And we do want to make mention of the foundation, because this is all built upon some factors that maybe aren't going to be right for direct investment with URI or state funding, but are really the things that make the Finger Lakes region special, and that is the high quality of public education, low cost health care, high quality of life in terms of everything from commute times to arts and culture. And so this is really a snapshot of the plan that we've put forward that we believe is something we can implement to grow and change the economy. And in total, you see on the left, our region identified up to $6.4 billion of private investment that could be leveraged if we're one of the regions that win the $500 million commitments. And that's just the projects we know about. That doesn't even account for projects that might be interested in our region when they find out about our plans or some of the other things that might be happening, like what happened in the Buffalo Billion, and that starts to get really exciting really quickly. I want to focus on 3 priority project areas that you might have heard of, or if not, I'd like you to know about before I close. And the first one is photonics, which is a relatively new word in the technology sphere, but really is what I call the evolution of the world's image center, which used to be the branding catchphrase for Rochester in the heyday of Kodak and Xerox and Bausch and Lomb, where you think traditional optics and imaging. Photonics is now the next generation of that. It is using light and photons rather than electrons to convey information, particularly in the nanoscale computing world. It has an incredible amount of applications, from your cell phone to your television to healthcare to communications. And most recently, our region was identified by the federal government through one of their national network of manufacturing innovation initiatives as the Photonics Institute for the country, in a partnership that involves SUNY Polytechnic University, University of Rochester, RIT, and about 30 industry partners along with New York State. So what you see on this slide is really we're going from the past of these big 3 that have incredible expertise in these technologies to a strong sector right now with 26,000 jobs and 100 different companies that have basically diversified from the old Kodaks of the world that are in the space now, trying to take it to the next level to attract additional R&D so that these photonics technologies can be commercialized and turn into manufacturing operations and opportunities, ideally in primarily Rochester, but in New York State and upstate.
What's an example of a product that incorporates photonics?
So we get that question all the time. We went to Albany, we did our presentation on the URI, and the president of the University of Rochester brought with him a detector, a handheld, it looked like an iron, that you could hold up to someone using photonics and detect cancerous cells within their body mass. And that's using photonics technology. Obviously, things like you may have seen commercials for now, flexible cell phone screens that don't break. That's using organic LED technology that uses photonics. So it's a whole wide variety of things that in many cases we won't even have thought of yet, but can take the next generation of things you might know and make them even better, the same way electronics did to mechanics in the last century. That's sort of the spirit and the goal of what we're trying to do. The second item I want to mention to you, which hopefully you're probably, well, maybe not, but you should be familiar with Eastman Business Park. It's a project that Joe Chan and others at Empire State Development and throughout the state government have focused a lot of our time in the last few years. This is the old Kodak Park. It is a city within a city. It is bigger than Central Park. It's 1,200 acres. It once employed 35,000 people right at this one site. As you now heard the story, the 62,000 people that worked in Rochester are now down to 2 in Kodak. So this has become a park that is full of other businesses that want to utilize the infrastructure and technologies and capability that exist in this park. And because of Kodak's challenges through bankruptcy and as a landlord, we have been very involved in incentivizing those companies, stabilizing things like the utility system, the wastewater system, the water access system, the incredible asset that exists here so that it doesn't become just a ghost town of ancient technology and ancient manufacturing in the middle of our city.
Who currently owns the real estate? Who owns the park?
Kodak still owns most of it. They have sold off about a third of it to private owners. So some major companies, one being Ledestri Foods, which may not be a brand you know, but you eat their foods all the time when you buy pasta sauce or salsa. They purchased their own real estate on the park, still utilize the overall system of the utilities and technology that exists, but Kodak still owns about 2/3 of the park, and they have about 60 tenants that have almost 7,000 jobs, almost all of which are not Kodak jobs at this point.
Is a lot of it vacant now?
A lot of it is vacant. They have demoed probably a quarter of the buildings in the last 10 years, but it is still got a lot of empty space available for repurposing, and they've even got greenfields now. I wouldn't call them greenfields because it's a very contaminated old chemical manufacturing facility where they can build new facilities, and that's one of the things we've been helping and incentivizing some of the projects that you may have seen come through here. It's one of the sites for one of the new 5 medical marijuana facilities that was sanctioned by the state. They're going to be growing indoors at Eastman Business Park, marijuana for medicinal purposes. So the purposes and the production that exists here is all over the map, but all have a common theme of needing the infrastructure and utility and secure space that exists here. And so in many ways, thank you for the commitment of this agency and the state to making sure that this didn't fall into a state of disrepair or dismay. We've kept all the tenants that were thinking about leaving. We've added a lot more, and we plan to continue to do that with our strategic plan. The last project I want to focus on, which really leads us into the board meeting, because there's 2 items of note on today's agenda related to it, is STAMP, or Western New York Science and Technology Advanced Manufacturing Park. This is intended to be the next mega site for nanotechnology manufacturing in upstate New York. You've probably heard of Luther, of course. You've probably heard of Marcy and near Utica. This is a site in Genesee County, in between Buffalo and Rochester, that is pictured here in dreamed form because it is not yet to be, but you'll see the logo of 1366 Technologies, which is a company that the governor came to Genesee County last month to announce a solar manufacturer of wafers from Massachusetts using MIT technology that is committed to be the first tenant of this park and invest upwards of $700 million, create up to 1,000 jobs in the first sort of bottom third of that picture you see right there for the growing solar industry that we're obviously working very hard to attract in upstate New York. And that leads us to today's board action because the state has committed funding for the development of the infrastructure of this park once the park had attracted its first tenant. So we are now there and we're ready to get to work. It's something that the Regional Council has prioritized for the last 5 years. Genesee County developed it in their strategic plan 10 years ago, and it's been a collaboration between the Finger Lakes region and the Western New York region because it will benefit the job bases of both, and that's what the attraction is for a company like 1366, to be able to pull from the educated workforces of both of those metropolitan regions. So that's the last project I wanted to focus on, and we can lead to discussion of that at the board materials or now. And I just wanted, before I finish, give a shout out to my staff in the Finger Lakes Regional Office. You know, it's really a wonderful opportunity to be here to represent them, to meet you, and to talk about the Finger Lakes region. But these are the people that do the work. We have a small but tough staff of 8 people. Many of you know the person in the back left in the tan jacket. It's Ed Musinski. He's our project manager extraordinaire, does all our work when it comes to the board, and really helps us all make look good. But it's a terrific group of people with incredible expertise and dedication to the region. And I wanted to thank them and make sure you saw who they were, because we don't get down here too often to meet everyone we work with. There's a lot of conference calls and a lot of emails, but I really enjoy the opportunity and hope you have a little greater sense of what the Finger Lakes is all about. Howard, it's back to you.
Vinny, fabulous job.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions for Vinny?
He set a high bar for everybody else.
That was great. Excellent. Well, you certainly get an idea of how robust the economic development planning at these regional levels are. So it was great.
What's the biggest challenge you face?
The continuing sort of loss of manufacturing jobs. I mean, we're fighting plants like Kraft closing all the time. Kodak continuing to downsize. Bausch & Lomb was bought by an international company. We had to fight to keep those jobs, and now we're fighting to attract more. That is, without question, the largest challenge. Now, that's fraught with all kinds of individual challenges, but without question, we've been fighting that for 30 years, and I think the strategic plan we've put in place shows a path forward on some key industry areas, particularly photonics and ag and food, which is probably the most immediate for job growth, that I think we can overcome those challenges.
What about population trends?
So it's been very steady. So comparatively, the region isn't keeping up with the growth you've certainly seen downstate or in other parts of the country. It's a story throughout upstate. Sure. But it's not been losing population. The city of Rochester has lost some, but the overall region has gained. I really describe Rochester as a very steady community. I've been for a long time. It has absorbed that 60,000 job loss without losing any jobs in the aggregate. They're just going into smaller firms, doing the things they were doing within the silo of Kodak, now on their own, having that entrepreneurial zest to go do it and turn it into a business, whereas Kodak might have left it. I mean, Kodak and Xerox are famous for having developed the digital camera and not done anything with it. Xerox, developing the graphic user interface and not doing anything with it. So there's great technologies in those companies that people are taking and turning into smaller firms. That's where the job base is now. So we've absorbed it. But it hasn't grown at a great rate. It's more been maintaining.
Yep, Joey.
You mentioned there were 42,000 unemployed, I believe. Do you have any idea who they are or what their skills or?
It's a pretty common story. It's concentrated. It's a much higher unemployment rate in the city of Rochester. The poverty issue is endemic of very poor urban educational results in the system. So a very small portion of the city school district students graduate and therefore then don't have many employable skills. So there's a concentration in that regard, and that's the challenge to figure out how to either retrain people for jobs that are available and also get the jobs close to them where then they can access them and also have other needs met. That's the whole picture we're focusing on with the Anti-Poverty Initiative, where the job placement and training is just one component of the other things people need, but that's where the majority of the unemployment would be.
I'm sorry, Jerry. And the new jobs that are being created, are they going to current residents of Rochester, or are people being brought into Rochester?
Mostly to current residents of the region. We're starting to see, I think, particularly with photonics, more interest in people from outside maybe coming and hopefully coming to get jobs. One of the keys in any economic development strategy upstate is also making sure that the people who you're educating in the colleges, where you're attracting and importing an incredible amount of students, you're keeping as many of them as possible. So that's also one of the main focuses.
Yeah, is there a lot of public housing in Rochester? Is it focusing on sort of the poverty level, where people?
There is, but not by comparison to downstate. But in terms of, I would say more than any other city upstate, we work with Homes and Community Renewal as a partner agency. There are more affordable housing projects in the works. They're very active of projects. So there is a lot. It is concentrated again. It's not geographically. Right. It's not diversified around the region. It's starting to. We've done a couple in some of the outer counties besides Monroe, but there is a decent amount. Yeah. I thank you for your attention to this.
Yep.
And,
terrific
I know
presentation.
It's a big agenda, but it's really great to have the opportunity to talk about the region and hopefully give you a little sense of it.
And one of the things you'll see as we move along, there are certain themes that run through all the regions. Vinny talked about workforce development. All the regions have some focus on these enabling initiatives, workforce development or innovation and entrepreneurship, sometimes downtown revitalization and place-based investments. But then they focus on different sectors, and they all have different ways of going about it. But that gives you a really good sense. So you'll see some common themes, but then you'll see some other regions have different strengths that they are building their go-forward plans around. Yeah. So no one else is really going to talk about photonics, for example.
Right.
They'll talk about other strengths that they have. But
it's been very fascinating to see the overlap, particularly on the agricultural side for upstate, because it's such a prominent industry in every region to varying levels. But then every region has almost one thing that is completely they want to focus on, and that's, I think, exactly what the governor wanted to see.
That's the beauty of it, really, is these, very grassroots, very regional concentrations. That's we never had that before. The only way to get to that is through this very decentralized, collaborative approach. So you got a real strategic plan the way you would in your business, but for a region. So it's great. Okay. Thank you again, Vinny. Glendon, will you take us through the summary of projects?
Thank you, and good afternoon. The directors will be requested to consider 12 projects totaling $40,012,710 in loans and grants. These projects include 1 Buffalo Building project, 8 regional council projects, and 3 discretionary projects. These projects take place in all 10 regions, will leverage over $287 million of additional investment, retain 720 jobs, and create 220 jobs in the state. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Glendon. Vinny, we didn't get, I don't know if we got into the detail to take a resolution, so why don't you hit the items that we have to vote on today?
Sure. So the first item that I have is the last one I finished off with, the Science, Technology, and Advanced Manufacturing Park in Genesee County. So
do you know which tab it is in our binder?
It's 3.
I'm sorry, I do not have your binder.
3A. It's 3A.
So this issue is the state committed $33 million of Buffalo Billion funds because this project is just a few miles from the Erie County border. It's part of the Western New York larger region, if you will, in between Buffalo and Rochester. And once that first tenant was secured, those funds would be used for infrastructure development. And so you're being asked to approve the first $5 million of that 33 for all of the design and engineering for the water, sewer, power, and road infrastructure that's going to go into place starting this spring. They're intended to get to construction at that point, directly at the same time as this new tenant will be building its factory, which initially will be a 250 super factory. And in fact, I think later in the board agenda, there is an item specifically related to the incentive package that we put forward for 1366 Technologies, which is that company.
Why is it called 1366?
You know, that's a great question. That has to do with the amount of energy the sun provides per watt that is completely over my head. It was fascinating when the CEO explained it. It made perfect sense. The governor asked him that exact question when he met him, and that was, it has to do with the amount of energy the sun enters the Earth's atmosphere.
We'll take your word for it.
I did a terrible justification of it, but that's what it is.
It hits the amount that hits the square meter, I think.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Now you know.
I know.
See what you learned here?
Did we do both of them?
I did not. Oh, so the second one is a regional council project for one of the universities in our region, St. John Fisher College. They developed an integrated science building that has been completed. The students are now using this semester for the first time, which will help with some of the fields that are growing in our region related to nursing, biology, chemistry. And this is for 2 grants of $250,000 each from the last 2 regional council awards, totaling $500,000 of that $13 million building. And so that's the second item from the Finger Lakes on today's board agenda.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the directors on either of these 2 items from the Finger Lakes? Any comments from the public on either of these 2 items? I'll take a motion to approve both items.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Joe Taswell, you've got the next 2 items from the New York City region.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon. I have 2 projects from the New York City region for your consideration. In the first, the directors are being asked to approve a grant of $300,000 for Intercept Pharmaceuticals to be used for a portion of the $1.9 million cost of renovating approximately 9,500 square feet of space at the Milk Building on West 15th Street in Manhattan. The company was founded in 2002 and is a pharmaceutical company focused on the development and commercialization of novel therapeutics for the treatment of chronic liver diseases and intestinal disorders. At the time that the company approached ESD, it was also considering an expansion in San Diego, where it maintains a research facility. This company has agreed to retain 20 existing jobs and create 20 new jobs. The great news is that the company has already exceeded its job commitment by 34 jobs. The project is also complete. The project fulfills one of 4 pillars of the New York City Regional Council's strategic plan by fostering innovation and building upon the emerging biotech cluster in New York City. The second project, the directors are being asked to approve a loan of $16.5 million for 5 Bay Street LLC, a development entity owned by Triangle Equities, to be used for a portion of the cost of $208 million cost for constructing Lighthouse Point. Lighthouse Point is a 500,000 square foot mixed-use development with retail, restaurants, a 164-room hotel, 116 residential units, 20% of which will be affordable to families earning at or below 60% of the area median income. It will also have an esplanade, a community amphitheater, and this is located at the site of the former U.S. Lighthouse Depot, which is adjacent to the St. George Ferry Terminal on the North Shore of Staten Island. The project is expected to result in 374 cleaning jobs and 668 construction jobs. This project was deemed a priority by the Regional Council in 2013 and was later awarded $1.5 million in Regional Council grant funding. An additional $15 million in existence is now being made available to close a funding gap resulting from higher costs in renovating the historic buildings and other challenging site characteristics. I should mention that this project is one of 3 transformative projects located on the North Shore of Staten Island, adjacent to the ferry. The other 2 projects include Empire Outlets, an outlet mall and mixed-use development, and the New York Wheel, which when built will be the largest observation wheel in the world at a height of 630 feet. The North Shore was deemed a opportunity zone by the Regional Council. These are one of 15 areas in the city with high growth potential, which have gone rezoning and have received catalytic public investment. In rounds 1 through 4, 70% of the council's funded priorities have been located in these opportunity zones. Thank you.
Excellent, yeah. So we'll take questions or comments from directors. Joyce?
Yeah, the wheel is being built with private financing? Okay.
And actually, there is an item that will be coming later in this meeting on the wheel.
The wheel. Any other questions or comments from directors on either Intercept Pharmaceuticals or Lighthouse Point Capital on Staten Island? Any comments from the public on either of these two items? Is there a motion to approve both?
Move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass. Thank you very much. John Vanderloo will present the next item from the North Country.
Good afternoon, Howard and directors. We have one item to present this afternoon. We are presenting the infrastructure investment project for the North Country Newton Falls Railroad Project Phase 2. This is the second of two grants awarded through round 1 of the CFA process to the St. Lawrence County IDA for redevelopment of the Newton Falls rail line in Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence County. We are requesting approval of $8,672,000 grant to be used for Phase 2 of the project. Phase 2 project in front of you today is the infrastructure investment which will result in the rehab and reopening of the entire Newton Falls rail line. Upon completion, the 46-mile rail line will be available for North Country commercial traffic in connection to the nationwide rail systems. It will also provide rail to the largest industrial zones in the Adirondack Park and allow for redevelopment of properties of which there is interest from the private sector. This phase of the project is set to begin as soon as we have board approval and will take about 12 months to complete. This is a priority project of the North Country Regional Council, meeting the strategies of the region, including improving transportation, infrastructure, expanding opportunities for manufacturing, as well as distribution and job creation. This project would not be possible without ESD assistance. Thank you, Howard. That is the presentation.
Okay, thank you, John. Any questions or comments from the board on this item in the North Country?
John, would you just speak briefly to the fiscal benefit cost ratio on the project?
All right. The fiscal benefit to all New York State government, this is on page 4 of the director's material. The fiscal benefit is estimated at $638,318. The fiscal cost to New York State government is estimated at $10,051,000. I can go through them all. The project construction cost is $9.78 million. Expected to generate 110 direct jobs and 43 indirect jobs. Would you like anything else, or will that do it? It's all listed on page 4. I've covered the major points. The economic benefit is estimated to be $5.4 million. Is that helpful? Hello?
Yep, we got you.
Yes, thank you.
Way to go. Yep, Joyce.
Yeah, this is a freight line, correct? It's a short haul freight line?
Yeah. That's correct, Joyce.
Okay. I want to ask how long ago it was abandoned.
Well, yeah, it's quite a long time ago. It goes back to the Jones & Laughlin Steel Company.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we need more of these around the state.
Any other questions or comments? Any comment from the public on this item? Is there a motion to approve?
Move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Howard.
Ken-
Good afternoon.
Yep. Good afternoon. Ken, are you on from the Mohawk Valley?
I am, Howard. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, directors. I have two projects to present to you today. Both are Regional Council Priority Project award offers. The first is known as Griffiths B240, which is military ease for an old, dilapidated Air Force building, a multi-story building that the Griffiths Local Development Corporation is asking our assistance in demolishing. It is a $3,195,710 Round 4 CFA project for which we are offering a $590,710 capital grant award with your approval. This will allow site work and demolition of this facility, which essentially will clear this site and allow it to be adjoined to other nearby parcels, creating a 25-acre development site on what was the former Griffiths Air Force Base, what today is the Griffiths, very successful Griffiths Business and Technology Park. This project aligns with the Regional Council's goal to increase spatial efficiency in the region by creating strategic sites that support our key industry concentrations. The second project, also a capacity building project, is the Oneida County Airport Terminal. This is a $5,082,000 Round 3 consolidated funding application priority project for which a $500,000 grant is sought. This would allow the construction of would allow a portion of the cost for the construction of a passenger terminal and to allow the relocation of the county's fixed-based operator offices. This relocation, in turn, will clear space that will allow for the expansion of existing aviation maintenance, repair, and overhaul tenants on the airport. The airport, by the way, is also on the Griffiths Business and Technology Park. It was named the county airport, county's international airport, a few years ago, and essentially is consistent, therefore, with the region's desire and its goal to be regionally networked and globally connected. Those are the two projects that I have for you.
Okay, any questions or comments from the directors on these two Mohawk Valley projects? Any comments from the public on either of these projects? Is there a motion to approve that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Arnie Will from the Capital Region.
Good afternoon. Today I have two grants that are combined into one project. The two grants are to Eagle Street Corporation. Total amount is the grants is $1,850,000 to support a $17,150,000 investment in downtown Albany. The first one, Wellington Row, is round 3 CFA of $950,000. That is the redevelopment of 5 connected properties on State Street near the Capitol. And this project involves commercial, retail, and residential space. The incentive proposal was accepted on May of 2014. It is close to completion. The second project is the Eagle Street Garage. It's a round 4 CFA. The award was $900,000. It is a 315-space, 5-level garage and public walkway. It's in close vicinity to the Wellington Row. The incentive proposal was accepted in May of 2015, and that project is complete. It's basically ties into our strategy of bringing cities to life and the redevelopment of the urban core, and it mirrors what the city has done in regard to their streetscape plan to encourage mixed-use development and ground floor pedestrian vibrancy. It traditionally has been in a blighted condition, and it had the properties were of historic nature. The newly created commercial space is occupied by four companies. They have created almost 60 jobs, and the project has also created 4 new apartment units that also bring residents into downtown. And that's the project, so I'd be available for questions.
Okay, thanks, Arnie. Any questions or comments from directors on this downtown Albany
Are you
project?
reviving the Wellington Hotel? It's an old Albany.
This is in place. This development took place in what was formerly the Wellington Hotel.
Where is this in relation to the Capitol?
Right next.
Just about
Right there.
Just down the street.
Yeah. If you walk out and you're familiar with the Hendrick Hudson, the Renaissance Marriott now it just opened. It's around the corner as you head down State Street. So it'd be the first 5 buildings from the top of State Street going down.
It did maintain the facades of
Yep.
Wellington.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
You still see it.
So it's on the right, walking down the hill.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think this is
Correct.
probably
For a number of years, all there was basically structures you had to walk under if you're going down the street.
Yep.
Got it.
Any other questions or comments from
Sounds good.
directors? Yeah, no, this is
Does
good to
sound
see
good.
downtown. Any comments from the public on this item? Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks. Thank you, Arnie. Robin from the Southern Tier, the floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. The Southern Tier region has 2 projects today. First is the Ithaca Commons Capital Project. This is a round 2 priority project for our region that was completed back in August of 2015, and it's a grant of $1.8 million to the city of Ithaca for a portion of the costs of streetscape reconstruction and rehabilitation consisting of a 3-block area in downtown Ithaca known as the Commons, including new sanitary and storm sewer mains and laterals, catch basins, water mains, and telecommunications and electric infrastructure as well. This project is consistent with our regional council strategic plan to revitalize the region's downtowns, main streets, and neighborhoods. And total project cost on this was $9 million. And second project that we have today is the Delaware County IDA Amphenol Capital. This is a grant of $750,000 to Amphenol Corporation for a portion of the cost of the purchase of machinery and equipment for propane gas distribution to assist with the retention of the company. You'll recall previously back in February of 2014, we took this same project to the board of directors in the amount of $750,000, and the funds were going to go to the Delaware County IDA to assist, but the IDA has requested since then that the grant be directed to Amphenol after discovering there would be significant delays in the installation of this pipeline. Total project cost for this new facility is $51 million, and it will retain 700 existing jobs at Amphenol. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions or comments from directors for either of these 2 projects in the Southern Tier? Any comments from the public on either of these Southern Tier projects? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Jim Fail, you've got the next item from Central New York.
Good afternoon. The directors are being asked today to approve the sale of approximately 30 acres of land to the Baldwinsville Central School District to construct a new 35,000 square foot garage. ESD owns this land in what is known as a corporate park as Radisson Community. This is a corporate park ESD built approximately over 40 years ago. At the time, there was approximately 3,000 acres to sell. Currently, there is 300 acres that is left to sell. The recent appraisal, or the asking, or the sale price is being $210,000. A recent appraisal came in at $490,000. However, ESD is authorized to sell land at less than the fair market value by the public authority laws. One of the reasons that it can do that is if it's going to a government or public entity. Also, about a third of this land is designated by the Army Corps of Engineers as wetlands, which is a main reason this particular parcel hasn't sold in the past. This does support the strategic plan of the Red Sea, and that it reduces or will be improving the urban core by reducing traffic congestion in the village of Baldwinsville, which is where the current bus garage is. It'll also lead to some government modernization because some of the smaller surrounding school districts will be able to use this garage to have maintenance done on their buses. And I'd be glad to entertain any questions.
Any comments or questions from the directors on this project in the central region? Any comments from the public on this item? Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Jim. Okay, Sam Filler will present the craft beverage grant program item, followed by Kelly Baccarizzo, who will present the Market New York grant program, and then we'll take both of these items together.
Good afternoon. The directors are requested to do the following: authorize the craft beverage grant program on the amended terms with the additional funding, adopt program guidelines, and authorize the president and chief executive or his designee to accept and approve grants, to disperse grant funds, and to amend program guidelines. As I mentioned earlier during this meeting, the governor at the October 7th summit renewed his commitment to the craft beverage marketing and advertising program that we have. And last December, this board approved the original program, which was a $3 million marketing and tourism promotion grant program that we separated into two separate programs, a $2 million marketing and promotion grant program and a $1 million tourism promotion grant program. To date, we have fully committed all the funds for the tourism promotion program. That's because A, tourism and craft beverages go together really well, and B, we provided 100% equity reimbursement, so people are a big fan of that when they know they're basically doing a project and we'll reimburse all their costs. For the marketing and promotion grant program, we committed $1 million. Some notable projects, or the notable project that I'd like to remind the board of is the New York Wine Country Bookazine, which was created by the New York Wine and Grape Foundation in partnership with Wine Enthusiast magazine. And going to what Vinny mentioned earlier, it builds upon the state being recognized as the wine region of the year and the Finger Lakes being recognized as a tourism destination for wine-based tourism. So that was really successful. 300,000 copies were produced. 200,000 went to Wine Enthusiast subscribers. So, we feel the program's been very successful. The governor was happy with it, and we do want to make some changes. Obviously, it would have been great to get all the marketing funds out, but there was some limitations to the program. We required a 50% match. We also required that the only eligible applicants were non-for-profit entities, and so we were thinking mainly that would be the major trade associations or beverage trails that we have in the state. So this year we're going to consolidate into one $3 million program, and we're going to allow private entities to apply for funding. The reason for that is, I'm sure this has come up with other programs, Grants Gateway, and some other kind of administrative checkpoints that we have to do with nonprofits, created a lot of headaches, and even some of our craft beverage trails, they don't have the correct tax status, but they have some really great project ideas, and they have one of their member cideries wants to sponsor the project. They weren't able to do that because they had to be a nonprofit. So now someone from the Cooperstown Craft Beverage Trail, a producer, can sponsor a project for all the trail members, which will hopefully get some more of this funding out. The other change we're making is we're going to reduce the equity requirement from 50 to 20%. So ESD will reimburse 80% of the cost for all these grant proposals. And then a minimum grant award will be $5,000 and a maximum will be $250,000. So it falls within the delegation of authority that was provided at the last board meeting for the chairman and CEO to make grants at his discretion. Just some other things that we're going to change. We're going to allow for research for marketing purposes to be allowed as an eligible project, and then we're going to fold in the tourism projects into this revised craft beverage grant program. And we're just going to call it the craft beverage grant program because before it was a mouthful and It's much easier to say this. And also just to note, we're requesting your authorization to approve $2 million more in funding. We're going to roll over the $1 million that was unspent in the past grant funding cycle.
Okay, thank you. Kelly?
Yes, good afternoon. Today we're presenting One Market New York project that we're requesting approval from the ESD Board of Directors. This is a Round 4 project totaling $1,550,000. The grantee is the New York Wheel with the project that you heard a little bit earlier. This is a working capital project, and specifically the organization will use the Market New York funding for a multimedia marketing campaign to promote the opening of the wheel, whose construction commenced in May of 2015 and is expected to be open to the public mid-2017. The marketing phase of this project will include tourism trade shows, public relations, website application development, and multi-channel advertising. Since the marketing campaign is aligned with the opening of the wheel, the expected completion date for the marketing phase of the project will be August 2017. Additionally, the organization is looking to work with New York City and Company, the local tourism promotion agency, to further leverage the state funds along with their funds and some of New York City and Company's funds as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions about this project.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from directors on either Sam's Craft Beverage Regional Marketing Grant Program or Kelly's Market New York Grant Program? Yes, please.
Has there been an evaluation of the attraction of this facility as for tourism, etc.? Have we seen an actual market study?
A market study wasn't necessarily required for the application for Market New York, but we certainly saw the economic impact of the attraction itself and the potential for the economic impact of the visitorship coming as a result of that destination. So they didn't have any specific information about the marketing itself, but the economic impact of the destination. But we did get also a breakdown of what will actually be done and how the marketing dollars will be spent.
But do we have any idea of what the potential attraction of this site is?
Yeah, maybe I can speak to that, Kelly. I mean, it's anticipated that 4 million visitors annually will visit the wheel, and potentially up to 30,000 visitors a day could actually ride on the attraction. So, it's a 38-minute ride around the wheel. So, I mean, and just kind of anecdotally, the situation on the North Shore of Staten Island is you have tourists that ride on the Staten Island past the Statue of Liberty, and then there's nothing to do, and so they get on the ferry and ride back. So part of what all these are a part of all these attractions, the three projects together, are to capture a lot of the tourism that comes by way of the ferry.
Is the wheel going to be close to the ferry?
Yeah, it's right next to the ferry.
Oh, it is too. Okay.
And
I mean,
there's
the largest in the world.
There's an outlet mall. There's a 1 million square foot outlet mall, the Empire Outlets, that will be right next to that. Right. And then the other project I mentioned earlier is on the other side.
Yeah. And when Joe does the New York City regional presentation, you'll get the sense that the city is focused on projects in the boroughs. They're focused on catalytic projects, transformational projects, as opposed to, say, Midtown Manhattan, where the economy seems to be doing fine.
Take care of itself.
There's a real focus on trying to, bring the economy to parts of New York City that have struggled in a way that Manhattan hasn't struggled. So
maybe I can show you a video that I can
Not all 38 minutes, though.
It won't be that long. It's about a minute.
They'll just show us the view from the top.
But this came up through the regional council process and was a significant project and has been some years in the making, I would say.
Yeah, I don't see what the owner's investment is in this project. Do we have numbers on that?
I have the grantee equity as, well, just for the marketing project, that this would not include the capital because that would be a separate. We're only looking at the working capital. It's $1,025,000, so 40%, which is over the required match that we had set for the Market New York grant program.
But do we know what the capital investment is?
Well, this is a $500 million investment. And
For the wheel itself or for the...
Yeah, for the wheel itself. And will include also EB5 funding. And they're in the middle of their EB5 raise right now. I think they raised maybe half of it. But they've already begun site work on the attraction as Kelly mentioned.
So at what point does the marketing commence then in terms of the construction schedule?
To my knowledge, I think that they're starting now because they're looking to, not only start with their putting their plans together, but I believe that they have, as my understanding, they have an international plan. They're going to be presenting at shows internationally, so they're looking to get people excited to come here, and that's another reason that this is was such a great program for I Love New York as a whole, because our branding would then be leveraged internationally. So we'll not only be getting people aware of this attraction in Staten Island, but hopefully it'll also make people aware of the other destinations across the state.
Other questions or comments from directors? Any comments from the public on these two items? Is there a motion to approve?
Move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, folks. Tom is going to present the Arthur Kill Land Use Improvement Project. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Howard. The directors are being asked to approve the Arthur Kill Land Use Improvement Project. As background, in 2013, ESD issued an RFP to redevelop the Arthur Kill Correctional Facility, a 69-acre prison on the west shore of Staten Island that was closed in 2014. The directors conditionally designated Broadway Stages, a company that owns and operates film and TV studios in New York City, as the developer of the site. Per their response to the RFP that ESD issued, Broadway Stages would purchase the site for $7 million, invest a minimum of $20 million within 2 years after closing, constructing new sound stages on the property and repurposing the site as a first-class television and film production facility. The project will create approximately 1,300 jobs. Since the directors conditionally designated Broadway Stages last year, we have concluded our environmental review of the site and finalized the essential terms of the transaction, which are outlined in the general project plan. Upon approval today, we will hold a public hearing on the project and seek the other necessary public approvals with the goal of closing on the property in the first quarter of 2016. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Tom on this Arthur Kill Land Use Project? Any comments from the public on this item? Motion to approve.
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Tom. Kathleen has a procurement item.
I do. Thank you, Howard, and good morning,
Thank
directors.
you.
Good afternoon, directors. We are seeking authorization to appoint Tosky & Company, PC, as ESD's independent accountants for audit and related services, and to enter into a 3-year contract with the option to extend for 2 one-year terms in the aggregate amount of $1,173,700, including a 10% contingency. As a component unit of the state of New York, ESD and subsidiaries is required to conduct an annual independent audit of its consolidated financial statements. In anticipation of the end of the term of the current independent accountant's contract, an advertisement was placed in the New York State Contract Reporter, and a request for proposals was issued in August 2015. 5 qualified responses were received from the firms of Sachs Best, Lumsden and McCormick LLP, Marks Penneth, Grant Thornton, and Tosky & Company, PC, ESD's current independent accountants. As a result of the recent completion of a merger, I'd like to note that Tosky & Company is now known as EFPR Group LLP. They merged with a company in the same area as them and have really expanded their depth. We have a nice bullpen behind us with this company, and they've also acquired some skill sets that they didn't previously have. A review committee comprised of members of finance, internal audit, and the legal departments evaluated and ranked the proposals based on predetermined criteria included in the RFP as follows: experience with public entities, qualifications of the partners and associates, demonstrated commitment of time and resources to public entities, number, complexity, and size of engagements handled by the respondent as audit firm for ESD or similar entities, stability of the firm and staff, cost of services, the financial strength of the firm, and the quality of the proposal and demonstrated understanding of ESD. In addition, in-person interviews were conducted with each of the 5 respondents. Each was afforded the opportunity for a brief presentation, which was followed by a question and answer period. The questions presented were the result of a collaborative effort by the review committee and sought to provide more detailed information about each firm and their ability to effectively and efficiently provide required audit and related services to ESD. The committee presented its recommendation to ESD's CEO and president and the audit committee, and with their concurrence, recommends Tosky EFPR as ESD's independent accountants for audit and related services. In addition to receiving a high overall ranking based on the predetermined criteria, the firm has experience with ESD and an understanding of the complexities of this organization, has professionally and successfully assisted ESD in the timely filing of independent audit reports to the Office of the State Controller, submitted a cost-effective bid, and has continually worked with ESD in responding to new financial standards and transactions, such as new GASB statements. Tosky EFPR has utilized the services of minority and women-owned businesses in each year of its previous contract at or greater than the level required, and has committed to at least a 30% participation for the new contract period. Based on the foregoing, we are requesting that the board authorize ESD to enter into a contract with Tosky EFPR for a 3-year term with the option to extend for 2 one-year periods in the aggregate amount of $1,173,700, including a 10% contingency. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Any questions for Kathleen on this item?
It's very thorough.
Any comments from the public? Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, move it.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, Kathleen.
We received this very late, and it was emailed to the directors, but that's just right. Some more copies.
Okay.
What is this? It was sent to you on Tuesday.
Great. We have not that many items left. Brian Keel, are you on the phone to present an item related to New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund?
Yes, I am. Can everyone hear me?
Yep, we can hear you well.
Great. Good afternoon. I'm here to present an investment of $5 million from the New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund into 1366 Technologies. As noted, 1366 will be the first tenant in the stamp facility out in Batavia. The company is engaged in the development of new technology for the solar industry. Specifically, they are developing a new production methodology to produce silicon wafers, which are the active component and the most largest main expense in the solar photovoltaic panel industry. They have a new production method which cuts the labor and associated steps in the process and turns it into a one-step process for creating these wafers. And at maturity, that reduces the cost of the wafer production by 50%. The company is planning to move beyond its current demonstration plant in Bedford, Massachusetts, and break scale for the full-scale manufacturing facility at the stamp facility in Western New York. It will be it'll be a 2-phase project that at completion will generate over 1,000 jobs and potentially up to 1,000 jobs in the region. In order to launch phase 1 of this manufacturing facility, the company is raising $68 million in preferred equity. The investment from the Innovation Venture Capital Fund will be part of that $68 million, and the balance of that financing will come from private sector investors and strategic partners. The equity will serve as a source of matching funds for the company's loan guarantee with the Department of Energy that is also helping fund this project. The company will satisfy the fund's locational requirement once the plant is open and they have hired their workforce. We have structured the investment in two phases, where we will invest $2 million right now, and there are another $3 million will go in when the balance of the equity has been raised. And typical of our investments, we have structured it that if the company fails to meet or sustain its locational requirement of being in New York State, that they would be obligated to return the funds invested by the Innovation Venture Capital Fund. Do we have any questions on the project?
Any questions from the directors? Comments from the directors? Are there any comments?
Yeah, I just had, okay, so we benefit from the anti-dilution provision here? Is that correct? I'm sorry, did you hear me?
We have the Series C equity, yes, and we have the same terms of our investment as the rest of the shareholders.
Okay, and so we're an LP in this venture?
I'm sorry?
Sorry.
We are an equity. We would be an equity holder in this project.
Right, but we're a limited partner, correct?
A direct equity holder.
What does that mean in terms of our liability then?
I think the company is.
Is it a limited partner?
I think
it's an LP.
I think it's a.
No, it's a corporation.
Yeah, I think it's a C corp, so we wouldn't have any pass-through liability on that.
Okay.
No. Other than the investment.
Other than
the
yeah, I think you mean liability beyond.
Right.
That's
okay.
Right. Any other questions from the directors? Any comments from the public? Okay, then is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. We have two other remaining items, both for information only, and no vote will be needed. There will not be a presentation today with regard to the budget variance reports. Staff is available to answer any questions directors may have regarding those. The second item, the annual report on jobs created, will be presented by Ralph Volsey.
Thank you.
Ralph?
Good afternoon. This report details the performance of ESD's economic development activities related to employment retention and growth. It also provides information on the status of ESD's loan portfolio. In this employment reporting year, 216 of the 238 active projects, or 91%, met their employment requirements. This compliance rate of 91% is a new record, surpassing the previous record of 90% set just a couple of years ago. We are seeing better compliance rate as a result of ESD's enhanced policies and procedures. For those 22 projects which were not in compliance, ESD penalized 12 companies, offered extended term to 5 projects, maintained the default interest rate on 1 project, which was a loan, 2 other projects which were also loan, and which interest rates were previously raised to prime plus 2% were told. Lastly, 1 project was submitted to legal and actions are ongoing. Of the 12 projects which were penalized, ESD is seeking approximately $2.2 million, of which about $2 million or more than 90% have been recovered to date. Over the past decade, ESD has recaptured approximately $42 million. Portfolio Management Department also monitors employment figures for the World Trade Center Job Creation and Retention Program. This year, 1 out of 15 projects failed to meet its employment requirements. This presents a default rate of less than 7%. With respect to ESD's loan portfolio, the outstanding balance as of October 31st, 2015 is about $149 million, which represent 104 active loans from 17 different investment sources. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Ralph. Any comments, questions from the board?
Ralph, was there any common theme across the non-compliant projects?
Not really. It tends to vary as we treat them over the years, we see new actors come to play. So there's no consistency.
But there's nothing in terms of size or industry or location that.
Oh, not really. Last year, I believe the worst performing region, if I'm not mistaken, was the Finger Lakes. And this year.
Maybe we can collect some of that while we're here.
We want our money back.
Well, this year, the capital region actually did worse than the Finger Lakes.
There you go.
But to your questions, I think the overall theme is some of the industries that we've seen that have faced difficulties, manufacturing, things like that, are some of the companies we saw face some difficulties and ask us for some consideration.
And of the companies which have not performed, of the 10 companies that did not receive penalties, why were they not penalized?
Well, the way we approach it, if you're a first-time offender, we tend to sort of like work with the entity. At times, through the workout committee, we'll offer an extended term, as we have done for 5 entities this year. The entities that tend to be penalized are the ones that are like repeat offenders, or if they had committed an action that is so blatant, such as moving out of state, then we have to really step up to the plate.
Could I make a suggestion then in the future of the report that instead of just indicating that there were 22 companies not in compliance and only 12 received penalties, indicate that in fact all of those companies were reviewed by the committee and what the agreements were in regard to those companies.
Sure.
I think that would clarify it. And we would look better.
Any other questions or comments? No other business. Then is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.